moment of intense struggle where a lot of folks are feeling despair. And even though I'm one of the younger members of Congress, I feel a bit like an old head now to give some advice or some thoughts about how it is that we can keep going. Because we don't do this because it's easy. We do it because we know the stakes are so high. We do this work and continue to do this work because we know our communities cannot afford defeat, and that's why we cannot afford to be defeatist. For me, we can clap for that, that's good. We can't, we just can't. But organizers find out how to win no matter what the conditions are. We don't have time to be defeatist because there's so much winning to do if you keep your eyes on the prize in the long term and take care of your community and your people in the short term. Because we keep getting told to measure our work by election cycles or by policies passing or not. But that's not how this works. We win when we build our movement. We win when we change hearts and minds. We win when we build resilient institutions. We win when we save lives in the short term and bend the arc of history over the course of a generation. And if we think that way, it will be so much harder for them to get us to give up. Because the status quo, the billionaire class, the right-wing extremists, the reason they keep beating us down is because they want us to quit. But we are not quitters because our communities can't afford that. And so what I have had a chance to experience has been to see some wins and some backlash, and some wins and some backlash. But our real victory is whether or not we have the resilience to keep on going and recognize that our work is a lifetime commitment. I want to give you an example just here from me in the short term. When I was a 20-year-old labor organizer in Texas, we were organizing alongside construction workers, hosting vigils and protests against employers that refused to give workers the right to a water break, the most basic of labor rights. People had their family members, their brothers, their sisters, their tios, their grandparents die in the Texas heat on construction sites because they weren't given a water break. And we organized and we marched, we held thirst strikes in front of city halls and passed in 3 cities the first ever water break rules and water break rights for workers in the American South. We were very proud of that back then. That's not the point of the story though. Because then, 13 years later, I'm now a brand new member of the United States Congress, and our governor, Greg Abbott, I'm the Greg that doesn't want to kill you. Our governor, Greg Abbott, passed a bill that they proudly call the Death Star Law. I don't know who wants to be with the evil empire, but that's what they called it. That eliminated local worker rights protections across the state and eliminated those water breaks laws that we had worked so hard for years to pass 13 years before. And I stood in my congressional office, I had never thought that I'd be a member of Congress, saying, what the hell am I doing here? How is it that we are worse off than we were 13 years ago? Not only did we lose the water break laws we had fought to win, now those sorts of things were banned across the entire state. What are we going to do? And what we did was we called together our community and said, we don't have time to be defeatist. We don't have much time to complain. It's time to do something about it. And we got people on planes from Texas to stand in the sun in front of the United States Capitol, just as we had in front of those city halls. We brought those families who had lost loved ones into the nation's capital, staged an all-day thirst strike, and demanded that the president issue a heat rule protecting not just every Texan, but every American, and asked that it did not take 7 or 8 years, but 1 year. And 1 year later, the president announced just last week those heat protections that we've been fighting for as a movement since 1972. We had Dolores Huerta there. She gave me my last sip of water before starting the thirst strike, and she said, we have been fighting for this since me and Cesar Chavez were kids. And if you think about it that way, if you think that she could come to a thirst strike, she took a red-eye plane from California. And, she is an older lady, but she didn't act like it, that she's been fighting for it so long that I couldn't just give up after 13 years or after 1 year or after one bad election cycle or after a couple bad months of organizing. Think about the incredible work that has been done just recently in the harshest of conditions. Y'all are about to hear from one of my heroes, Cori Bush, who similarly staged a sleep-in on the Capitol steps, protecting millions of Americans from evictions during COVID. Think about when the Muslim ban got announced by President Trump and the way people flooded airports and blocked airplanes that were going to deport people from the Seattle tarmacs all the way to JFK Airport. Think about that incredible work. In the harshest of conditions, we can either give up or we can make sure that we win. Saving one life is a win. Protecting somebody from getting deported is a win. Getting your friend elected is a win, or getting them back on their feet after they lose their race is a win. And we should talk about it, because we can be clear-eyed about the challenges. We should talk about the injustices, indignities, and the horrors. We absolutely should. I mean, talking about the horrific, needless slaughter in Gaza, you can be very clear about how horrific that has been, while recognizing that the movement in this country is transforming our politics and is going to be what it takes to stop that killing and to win a lasting peace and to rebuild a peace movement so our country starts investing in peace instead of continued war. We should be clear-eyed and thankful for the people that have been doing this organizing. In my state, abortion is banned. We can be clear-eyed about the fact that that is killing people in Texas, killing infants, killing mothers, and that so many people are having kids that they're not ready to have. But we also don't talk nearly enough about the people in the Midwest, the abortion funds in the Midwest, because people see it, a lot of that work as banned. Just helping people get abortion care is legally dangerous. So there's people all over the United States moving millions of dollars to coordinate thousands of people to get out of Texas and get to the states that they need. People are figuring out how to cover for their coworker's shift, how to borrow their friend's car. Somebody in the Midwest is calling somebody in McAllen, Texas, and making sure they have the money they need to get to New Mexico to get the care they need. We don't talk enough about the brave work that's happening every single day. That's organizing, that's winning, that's something to be proud of. Because winning inspires more winning. Organizing inspires more organizing. Complaining doesn't inspire shit. Also, it's been worse than this before. It has been worse than this before. I walk into the U.S. House, onto the floor of the House, and a lot of folks say, you know, what a mess, how awful, and I get that. But I also recognize it's the same House floor where somehow abolitionists, emancipators, people that were enslaved spoke up and somehow got the United States Congress to vote to pass out the 13th Amendment for its ratification, to abolish slavery. They did that. Think about that. That's way harder than anything we're talking about over here. The 19th Amendment in 1919, there weren't women on the House floor, but a movement of women and their allies somehow got the 19th Amendment passed to win the vote for women in 1919. People have faced down these impossible conditions. And as folks have talked about, our heroes of the past, be they in the movement for abolition, be they in the civil rights movement, be they in the Chicano movement, sometimes we treat them as if they weren't people just like us sitting around here. They weren't made out of gold. They were made out of dust and clay just like us. They had their tough days just like us, and now the responsibility is passed along to us to make healthcare a human right instead of a privilege, to make sure our government works for working people and not just the billionaire class, to get big money out of politics, to have judges that are actually accountable to the law and to the people and not just to their donors, to make sure that we win a lasting peace in our community, to make sure that we beat back the NRA and keep kids safe safe in our schools, to make sure everybody has the chance to thrive and to live, and we should have some fun while we win it and while we beat them.